Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. I know I did. Watching 6 football games, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. At the beginning of the season, I'm not a big fan of expanding the playoff in any sport. They've been doing it in baseball. They've talked about it in hockey, obviously last year with the return to play. Basketball's started like a play-in, which isn't as bad. There'll still be only 16 teams. But when I heard it in the NFL, I really didn't like it. And it's because I value the NFL so much when it comes to making the playoffs. I think it's harder to make the playoffs in the NFL than any other team sport. And I don't even think it's that close. Hockey, 16 out of 31 now to be 32. So half the league makes the playoffs. Same with the NBA. NBA 16 out of 30 right now. I mean, and if you're competent, you're going to make the playoffs. NFL, you win your division, and you got to be the next 2 best teams, and you make it. And they obviously add the 7th seed this year, but I didn't mind it. I like the extra game. I love both days, 2 o'clock till midnight football. It makes you think like it's a regular week. So I'm not gonna complain about that today. I thought I would, because that's something I don't like change. That's one thing about me that I really need to work on is somebody throws me a curveball and I'm not really adjusted to it. And I look at it the same way in sports. When somebody says, well, there's going to be no NFL from February to September, that's really hard on me. When, somebody says you got to do this, like when there's no NFL on, I'm a different person. I'm just from September on, I'm a happier guy. And, summer's over. I should be, less happy. There's snow, whatever. When it's February till September, no NFL, it's really sad. Especially last year, no CFL. I was in a dark spot there for a while. But, I love the wild card. I love the format. Every game this weekend, I'm going to say, was pretty good. The Seattle Rams game was hard to watch. I don't think that was so much good defense as it was bad offense. But just in general, some key themes before I start talking about the games as a whole. This weekend, some really bad coaching. Really, really bad coaching. It could be Matt Nagy. It could be deciding to punt against the Saints with 8 minutes left. I realize you're down 21-3, but if you punt, the game's over. Like, you're just succeeding. You're just giving up. Pittsburgh last night, Mike Tomlin, who I love. I think he's second best coach in the NFL behind, the genius Bill Belichick. Punting the ball when your team is driving back, you're down big, and you punt the ball in the fourth quarter? Like, what? You play to win the game. Herm Edwards. They lost last night by 11 points. Who gives a shit if you lose by 18? Go out swinging. Babe Ruth struck out more than anybody, but guess what? He also hit the most home runs. So eventually you're going to hit one. Take a chance. I think of the Indy game. Frank Reich, I think he's a good head coach. But the decision when they scored in the fourth quarter to make it a touchdown game, 7-point game, they're going to kick the extra point, make it a 7-point game, down by a touchdown. On the kick, on the extra point try, it goes through, but Pittsburgh's called for an illegal shift. So they could take the point, or they could put the ball at the 1 and then do it again, or go for 2. He decides to go for 2. And it didn't make any sense because, okay, yes, if you make it, you're down 6 with an extra point, you go up. But you're taking a risk that you're going to have to make the 2-point conversion later if you miss. Take the 7, and at least you're tied. If you get another touchdown, you're tied. You go to overtime, you take your chances. I get the risk when it comes, I was saying, just a second ago, Mike Tomlin, take the risk. Right there, it wasn't a risk reward. It was just stupidity. Sometimes coaches overthink. I think they overthink. And Frank Reich did there. Just take what's in front of you. If you got a piece of cake in front of you, eat it. Don't go for the other cake 20 meters down the road. Eat what's in front of you. And sometimes teams just got to take what they can get. And I didn't see that enough this weekend. Trying to think of some other bad coaching decisions, but I just thought as a whole, it was poor coaching, and you could blame it a lot on why teams lost. Just I think coaching in general right now in sports as a whole is really bad. I could look at football. I got a personal story that I'm not going to share, not about me, but just something, along those lines. Sometimes you just play your best talent, see what happens. And in certain situations, just do the smart thing. And I don't think enough teams do it in the NFL. They recycle these coaches that they coached there before, so we got to hire them. It's the old boys club. You got to hire all the old white guys to more head coaching jobs. That'll be an off-season podcast because I have a lot to say about that. But let's get into the games. First game of the weekend, Indianapolis at Buffalo. Great game. Might have been the best one of the weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Before I guess I talk about the game, I'll say, I made game picks. I like to prop myself up when I get them. I went 5-1, so I had a pretty good weekend, including this one. Buffalo. I knew Buffalo. I thought Buffalo would win this game, but I knew it would be close. I told Ben on the podcast last week that Indy would keep it to a touchdown or less. They got a good defense. Phillip Rivers can score points. They got Jonathan Taylor, who was just coming off a huge game, and Indy did that. They early they're getting pressure on Josh Allen, making it tough for him. They also scored first, obviously making it 3-0. But what you see from Buffalo in this game is just Josh Allen can adapt. The drive start the second quarter, 8 plays, 85 yards. You find 6 different receivers, obviously going to Beasley, Diggs, Dawson, Knox, Devin Singletary. He's spreading the ball around, and I think the best quarterbacks can do that. They got their number one option, and they'll throw it to him a ton when they need to. But Josh Allen, we seen him last week through 2 touchdowns to Isaiah McKenzie, who had 4 snaps in this game. He's a special teams player. Gabriel Davis had a huge half. Bills go up 7-3 after a little bit of a lob throw to Dawson Knox back of the end zone. Colts respond. That was kind of the theme of the game. Whenever the Colts kind of got punched in the mouth, they came back fighting. It's one thing that you saw from the Colts, though, and this was the drive. They had a long drive, 13 plays. They were moving down the field. Phillip Rivers was finding Michael Pittman the whole day, the rookie out of USC, who looks like a damn good receiver. So they got a good future there with him and T.Y. Hilton and, Jack Doyle at tight end. So the Colts, even with a loss, they look like they're going to be a player for a while here. It really changed the game on this play where Colts are driving after they get a touchdown, and they got a 4th down. And they're at the 2, and Phillip Rivers had him with a little fade back to the end zone to Pittman again, and he just overthrew him slightly. And I understand the gamble. I think it was the right gamble because they're on the 2. You don't want to kick a field goal there after that long drive. However, and also, it makes sense because Buffalo, if you miss, Buffalo starts on their own 2. So you feel good about your defense. So I agree with the decision to go for it there. The only problem was Buffalo gets the ball in their 2. They drive it the whole length of the field. And that's on the defense. You can't let that happen. You're hoping there, okay, we get a quick stop. We get the ball at midfield. We'll get some points for the half. Buffalo goes down the field and a couple of huge plays. Gabriel Davis made 2 plays that had to be reviewed. That was one frustrating part about this game. The final 2 minutes of this second quarter took like half an hour. Every catch, they're reviewing it. Video review. Get out of sports. I don't want you. I don't care. If the ref, I'll make this point I'll make it every podcast. If you can't make the decision using the eye test, then get out. Get somebody who can. Get somebody, in a friggin' bird up a chopper above the field looking down at it. I don't know, but it ruins the flow of the game, and it's becoming more and more of college football where this happens constantly. And I still love college football, but it kills the product because you're like, oh, another fucking Lowe's commercial. Who gives a shit? Let's go. So, and anyway, to make a long story short, Josh Allen runs in a touchdown, Bills up 14-10 at the half. And, it hurt because the Colts should have had the lead, but Bills have had the lead. Start the second half, you get a field goal. Colts going along another wrong drive, but they get stopped on the 15, 14-play drive, stopped on the 15. Rodrigo Blankenship misses the field goal off the upright, didn't bounce in. He's been one of the most accurate kickers all year. It's his first playoff game. It just didn't work out for him. Chunked it, and another play where Indy's probably looking at film this morning saying, if we could have this one back. Obviously, this is what the Bills have done all year. You make a mistake, they capitalize. Josh Allen throws a beautiful deep ball. Stephon Diggs, who had a big game again, over 130 yards receiving, touchdown. 24-10 Bills. It was at this point, it felt like the Bills were going to cruise to a win. But Phillip Rivers, I give him a ton of credit. He didn't give up. He gets the ball back. They start throwing the ball to Hines, getting Jonathan Taylor more and more involved. And the drive ends with Zach Pascal getting a touchdown reception. So 24-18 after they go for the 2-point conversion. And it's the thing for Buffalo, the one thing I can point at them is their third down. On third down, they were 2 for 8. You're not going to win many games doing that. They need to improve that moving forward here. They obviously got a tough matchup next week, which I'll talk about later, but you're not going to win in the playoffs being 2 for 8 on third down. They were fortunate that they did, but they were lucky. Again, Colts get the ball back. Phillip Rivers, 30-yard touchdown strike to Jack Doyle, who's wide open. And the Colts were explosive. They haven't really been explosive passing offense all year. They had 8 plays of over 20 yards, which, Phillip Rivers' rarity, especially at his age. So 27-24. Indy gets the ball back at the end of the game. They use all their timeouts, frantic play, and they got 1 play left with 4 seconds, Hail Mary. Phillip Rivers throws it up there. Pass is knocked down. Buffalo survives. They win their first playoff game since 1995. And they're off to the divisional round where they'll host a playoff game next week. But all in all, I thought Josh Allen looked solid in his he played in his first playoff game last year, looked god-awful against Houston. He looked good. He didn't make stupid mistakes. They got good efforts from Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley was clearly playing hurt, but he battled through. I think they could try to get some more on their run game. They lost their rookie running back, Zach Moss, who I think he may have a broken leg. It did not look good in the game. But before we move on, just about the Colts, Phillip Rivers signed a 1-year deal after playing 16 years with the San Diego and then turned Los Angeles Chargers. Drafted in 2004, he was in the Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, kind of those three are always linked. This is it. Hell of a career. He never won a Super Bowl. He got to an AFC divisional playoff game against Tom Brady and the Patriots in 2007. I actually played that game with a torn ACL. So that's kind of been Phillip. He's never, if you look at him, how did he play this long? I mean, he can't move. He's slower than a snail. He throws a wonky football, always has, but he just battles. And the Colts aren't as talented as the Bills, but they made this as close as they could. So credit to Phillip Rivers. I know a lot of people kind of dunk on him because, Ben and Eli Manning both have 2 Super Bowls. But if this is it, great career, likely going to be a Hall of Famer. So, with those 2 other guys from that draft, we may see all 3 of them be in the Hall of Fame. Ben for sure. But good for Phillip Rivers. He battled the whole way. But I'll get back to my sentiment. You played hard, but you didn't win. So see you later. Next game on the docket was Los Angeles Rams at Seattle Seahawks. Third matchup of the season, obviously both playing in the NFC West. Coming in, Seattle had beaten Los Angeles just 3 weeks before this game. So Seattle came in with a little bravado, a little demeanor that they were going to win. And it was going to be kind of easy. Rams were unsure who was going to play quarterback all week. John Welford ultimately got the start, but it was kind of weird for me because Jared Goff, the number one overall pick in 2016, was on the sideline, dressed. He was the emergency backup quarterback. So I said, well, if he's your number one, why is he not playing? If Welford gets hurt, Goff comes in. Like it didn't make sense to me. And of course, on Los Angeles' second possession, Jamal Adams nails John Welford. I thought it was a clean hit. It hit him in the body. Then he did make contact with his head, but I thought it was a clean football play. That might be my bias too, because I'm a huge Jamal Adams fan. But anyway, Welford had to leave the game. He was actually sent to the hospital during the game, and I think they said he's okay. His neck was kind of the biggest worry, but he was removed from hospital that night, so he should be okay. Hopefully, wish him all the best. But he leaves the game, and in comes Jared Goff. Like I said, Jared Goff just 2 weeks ago had thumb surgery. He's got splints and everything on it, and staples in it, and they're talking about it in the telecast. Not a fun experience for Jared Goff. But Seattle came out struggling in a major way. And you can credit, the Rams pass rush. Aaron Donald had 2 sacks in the first 2 possessions. He was just a bull. He's a bull in a china shop. Leonard Floyd too. Russell Wilson's good with his legs, but they really couldn't do anything. I think a lot of bad Seattle offense too. They had some drops. DK Metcalf was throwing temper tantrums on the sideline. Russell Wilson wasn't accurate. Only completed 42% of his throws, which is a career low for him. But it got bad to worse because they were kind of starting to gain some traction. The Rams were on the board. They're up 7-3 at this point when Darius Williams pick 6 Russell Wilson, 42 yards to the house. He's trying to get a screenplay to DK Metcalf. Darius Williams, the secondary corner, read it perfectly, grabbed it. Nobody even close to him takes it back. Seattle would score before the end of the half. Find DK Metcalf for a long, but 20-10 Rams at the half on the road, and Seattle really hadn't looked like they'd found their game yet. They got a good return start the second half, 2013. They got a 50-yard return, but Seattle never really got on track the whole game. Like I mentioned, Russell Wilson was running for his life the whole game. They couldn't establish Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde in the running game. DK Metcalf was being getting blanket coverage from Jalen Ramsey, who Jalen Ramsey, if you remember, used to play for Jacksonville, and he wanted out of Jacksonville, which makes more and more sense as time has gone on. But he gets traded to LA, and he's got a big deal, but he's earning it. He's played DK Metcalf 3 times this year, and when he's been covering Metcalf, Metcalf has 10 catches for 100 yards in 3 games. I mean, Metcalf does that in a game easy. Jalen Ramsey just is his kryptonite. He couldn't do anything. It was Russell threw him a good deep ball, just great coverage. Ramsey knocked it down. He's fun to watch. This Rams defense, they have a lot of superstar players on it. Obviously Aaron Donald and I think Ramsey are probably tops both at their position. Maybe Xavier Howard can make an argument for the Dolphins at corner, but that was kind of a huge part of the game. Midway through the third quarter, actually, Aaron Donald left the game after making a tackle on Chris Carson. He grabbed his ribs instantly. He tried to come back, but he was having a hard time catch his breath. And obviously that doesn't bode well for the Rams, but he had to leave the game as well in the fourth quarter. Cooper Kupp, their wide receiver, also left the game. So that'll be something to watch this week. Seattle also in this game, too many mistakes. And Russell Wilson, bad clock management. He was getting delayed games. They were getting false start penalties by the dozen. And it's just another mistake, a kickoff return. He fumbles it, recovered by the Rams. Jared Goff, who's throwing on the one thumb, finds Robert Woods wide open in the end zone, touchdown. And that really sealed the game. And that was kind of the point of the game where Jared Goff really wasn't that effective. The Rams defense kept them in it, and he made enough good plays for them to win. And, he played better than Russell Wilson, with one thumb. So this was probably the worst game I've ever seen Russell Wilson play. I mean, he's not a guy where you look at him and you say, well, he's not a playoff performer. He should have 2 Super Bowl rings if Pete Carroll wasn't smart and didn't call a pass play when he should have called the Marshawn Lynch 1-yard run against the Patriots, where he gifted the Patriots a Super Bowl with the Malcolm Butler interception. But this is a tough day for him. I think it was an emotional win for the Rams. Obviously, you're playing your division opponent. You want to win that game. And a big win for the Rams. With that win, I'll mention the playoff matchups for next week as we go on, but because the team didn't play, the Rams are the 6th seed. They were the lowest seed that was remaining, so they're heading to Green Bay. They'll play Green Bay next Saturday at 5:30. I don't love the matchup for them. They're a warm weather team heading to one of the coldest places in the NFL. Also, Jared Goff not being 100% healthy. Who knows what Welford? I mentioned Kupp, Aaron Donald. And obviously Aaron Rodgers getting a week off to kind of game plan and rest up and get his body feeling good. It's going to be tough for the Rams to go in there and win. Jared Goff was 9 for 19, 155, 1 touchdown. Didn't turn the ball over, but you're going to have to do more than that. Obviously Cam Akers, impressive day for him. He had 177 combined yards when it comes to receiving and rushing, which is the second most by a rookie in a playoff debut in NFL history. So their running game is going to need to be good. They're going to need to force some turnovers because I don't think Jared Goff will be good enough to score some points, which they did do against Seattle. But good on the Rams, a very banged up team, and to come into Seattle and beat them, is impressive. So good. It's good on the Rams. Big win for them. The last game of Saturday was Tampa Bay at Washington. And this is the game where I picked the Rams was the one team one pick I got wrong. I had Seattle winning. So the Rams won. I had Seattle. Tampa Bay at Washington was the game I thought would be a blowout. And before the game was about 5:30, it came out that Alex Smith was not going to play. And I said, well, this game's over before it even starts. Taylor Heinicke, I remember the name just watching him in college, but he's been bouncing around from New England to Carolina. Now he's here as their 4th-string quarterback on the practice squad. He's going to be a disaster. And playing against Tampa Bay, who I consider the 2nd-best team in the NFC behind Green Bay, this is not going to be a good matchup for Washington, even with their great defense. And it didn't start out great. Tampa Bay got a field goal to start, good drive. Then a Washington 3-and-out. Then, Tampa Bay gets the ball back, get first down. Washington gets them off the field. So their defense doing the job. But Heinicke's next possession, ball's tipped, line of scrimmage, intercepted. And, of course, Tom Brady turned that into a touchdown drive where he found Antonio Brown, 10-0 Tampa Bay. And I was like, oh, okay, well, the floodgates are already opening inside in the second quarter. What we saw was one of the more impressive performances in a playoffs by, a playoff rookie that I've ever seen. Taylor Heinicke played his ass off in this game. They responded after that with a touchdown drive. He was using his legs when he had to, making beautiful passes. Logan Thomas, Steven Sims, Cam Sims were huge huge guys for him. They're driving down the field. He's taking shots down the field, and he's playing with a reckless abandon, but also with a sense of calm where he knows it's a playoff game and it's his show. Steven Montez was his backup, fifth string, another practice squad player. Like, this is Alex Smith wasn't dressed. So there's no Jared Goff lurking. Taylor Heinicke knew he had the offense. It was his team. It was his night, and he took advantage of it. So they go, J.D. McKissick runs in a 3-yard touchdown. Tampa Bay missed an extra point, 9-7. But again, Tampa Bay against his Washington defense early, Washington was not stopping them. Brady throwing to whoever he wanted to. Antonio Brown was running the football. Fournette had his best game of the season. Leonard Fournette, if you ask me, he's had some struggles this year running when it comes to fumbles, but also just dropping the ball when Brady throws it to him in the backfield because Ronald Jones was hurt on the second play of the game. But capped off, found Chris Godwin. They failed the 2-point conversion, so they're still up 15-7, so 8-point lead. Before the Washington, another drive where they couldn't get points. But we saw all game really where Washington never gave up, and they were down 18. They were down, big. Heinicke, go watch SportsCenter. Go look up the Taylor Heinicke touchdown run. This is all heart. He's running to the left side. He doesn't really have the edge, but beats the guy to it, and he dives for the pylon touchdown. Makes it a 10-point game. It makes it a 15-point game at this point, but they're fired up. They get a stop, get the ball back. And then, he goes another touchdown drive where he fires a pass to Logan Thomas at the back of the end zone. He's fired up. He really had two of the best plays of the day where he threw in the back left corner of the end zone. He threw a ball that it was a tight window, puts it in there. And this is a guy who's hasn't made a start since 2018. So, he's just coming in basically off the street to play a game here against Tampa Bay and the GOAT, Tom Brady. And Brady was he was having a little hissy fit on the sideline, yelling at his defense. Right before half, he was kind of classless, where he was bitching at he was pulling a Sidney Crosby in this game. That's what I'd say. Bitching at the refs and complaining. But ultimately, Tampa Bay had too much talent. Brady found Antonio Brown at the end of the game. They're up 8. Washington got the ball back, but they had a chance, knocked down the ball by Carlton Davis. That put the game on ice. But it gave Tampa a test. Their defense did not look great. They couldn't get pressure on Heinicke. He really had a clean pocket all day. And the biggest thing, Chase Young, who kind of called out Tom Brady before the game, had a really quiet day, which is not surprising. That seems to happen when these players do that. But Daron Payne had a big game for Washington. He had 2 sacks of Brady. Jonathan Allen did, and they had consistent pressure all day. And that's what you got to do to beat Tampa here. You got to put pressure on Brady because he's 43. He wasn't fast before when he was 21. So he gets flustered, throws the ball away. He starts to get agitated when he's on the ground more and more. So that's the key for these, their next opponent is make Brady's day tough. And Washington did that. But, Heinicke's going to be a free agent. Maybe I think this performance definitely, guaranteed him a backup job next year. There's so many backup quarterbacks in the NFL that are terrible. I think he's at least proved that he can play. And if you wanted to make him your backup, I think he earned another contract. So I think this playoff performance at least keeps him in the league. So more power to him. I mean, he played his heart out. Another one, there's a winner and a loser, and he lost. But to go up against Tom Brady in the box when the odds are stacked against you, and to make it a touchdown game, 8 points, he deserves a ton of credit for that. So Tampa moves on like I thought they would, but they got a test, and that might be better for them in the long run too, because the past few weeks they played Atlanta and then Detroit and then Atlanta. That's like playing JV basketball, a JV basketball team. So they needed a test. They got one here, and they handled it. So to their credit, they got through the game. Doesn't matter how they won it. You win the game, you play next week. So they're moving on. That brings us to Sunday, and really, the game I was most excited for on the weekend was Baltimore at Tennessee. They played last year, 2019 divisional playoff game. Was a terrible game for Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry went off in the game. He was just a monster, running for over 150. Baltimore couldn't tackle him. But they also played earlier this year where Derrick Henry ran for over 130. Tennessee won in overtime. You had Tennessee players stomping on the Ravens logo. That was definitely a theme in this game. It was at start. It was tough for Baltimore. They got 3-0. Then Tannehill went on this perfect drive where he was 6 for 6, three catches for AJ Brown in the drive, and he ultimately threw it to AJ Brown, who was kind of hand fighting with Marlon Humphrey in the end zone. Could have been offensive pass interference. They didn't call it. He goes up, makes the catch, 7-0. Next drive, Lamar kind of throws up a duck, just threw one up for Miles Boykin, but Malcolm Butler intercepts it, results in field goals, 10-0 Tennessee. It was at this point where the game shifted. Lamar, they started to use their run game effectively. Lamar was using his legs. And Baltimore ended up scoring 17 unanswered points. And it starts with, them getting a field goal, but then they tied it up for the half. Minute 45 left. This was about 2:21 left. Lamar, he's just incredible. It's 3rd and 9. That's not great. That's not a great down a distance for Baltimore because they're not a passing offense. It's not their strength, but Lamar's under pressure. He's got guys around him, breaks out of the pocket, and just Kevin Byard was their safety. He had to make the tackle. Lamar just basically broke his ankles, went around him, goes down the sideline, 58-yard touchdown run, and it shifted the game. The momentum went to Baltimore. They had the momentum going into half. They got the ball to start the second half, and you could just feel it shift. There was some people. There was a crowd in Tennessee. It was almost like a groaning because they knew, like Baltimore, they have it right now. Lamar was feeling it, and he never lost it. Really the rest of the game. Opening drive touchdown, 10 plays, 77 yards, 6 minutes off the clock. Lamar running, J.K. Dobbins using it, throwing passes to Hollywood Brown, who had a quiet playoff game last year. Hit over 100 yards receiving today. Was really Lamar's main man. He only threw for 179 yards, and Hollywood Brown had 115 of them. So he was having a big day. But J.K. Dobbins runs in 17-10. Like I said, 17 unanswered points. Tennessee, they switch 3 and outs, but Tennessee ends up getting a field goal. And then Baltimore missed a 52-yarder. Justin Tucker, one of the most accurate kickers in the history of the NFL. And then he actually did make a 51-yarder later. But this is the point of the game where I said coaching. I mentioned earlier in the podcast. Mike Vrabel, you have the ball. 8 minutes on the clock. It's 4th and 2 from midfield. You're down by a touchdown. Right? You're still in the game. But it's 4th and 2, and Baltimore's been running it down your throat all game. And one thing, if you know football, when you run the ball, it chews up clock because it doesn't stop. And just click, click, click. If you throw the ball, there's always the risk of them dropping it. Guess what? That stops the clock. If you throw it out of bounds, that stops the clock. You run the ball, it's not going to stop if you keep possession. And Baltimore was doing it. Lamar was running. J.K. Dobbins was running effectively. Gus Edwards. It didn't matter. They were picking up yardage. Tennessee really couldn't stop them. So you're down a touchdown, 8 minutes left, and Baltimore, just for reference, has had 3 drives go over 5 minutes. So at your best case, you're looking at that at that time of possession, you're going to have maybe 2.5 minutes left to score a touchdown, which they can do, but your offense hasn't, like I said, 17 unanswered. I keep the ball. I go for it on 4th and 2, and they punted the ball, and it made no sense. Baltimore had the ball till the 2-minute warning. They kept the ball. The best thing they did was sack Lamar on 3rd down, so they forced a punt, but they were backed up deep in their territory. And really, the biggest story of the day, was Derrick Henry. He only had 40 yards rushing. Brandon Williams, that front four, Calais Campbell, had big games for Baltimore. They didn't let Tennessee establish the run. That was from the first run. Derrick Henry's first run was for 2 yards. It kept getting worse and worse. And I don't think Tannehill was awful in this game. I think he could have played better. I think he had some tough luck with his receivers at times. Corey Davis was hurt in the game. He couldn't really play. Clearly, A.J. Brown was not feeling top-notch because he had to check in and out a lot. Westbrook Akimi, he dropped 2 balls in the game, so it was tough for Lamar. For Ryan Tannehill. But 2-minute warning, they have the ball, it's 3rd down, and a slip up by Batson intercepted Marcus Peters. And, of course, I mentioned that the Titans were dancing, stomping on the Baltimore Ravens logo when the game was in Baltimore. The Ravens started to do that, and it was really contentious. The whole game was, but after the game, there's no handshakes. Lamar ran off the field, and he kind of described as Tennessee as classless the last time, and they didn't want to show them any respect after. But Lamar capped the game off with a 3rd down, 30-yard run. He slid. They were able to eat the clock, and Lamar Jackson won his first playoff game as a starter. He was 0-2, 2 really bad performances against San Diego and Tennessee last year. But, this game, he was Swiss Army knife, threw 170 yards passing, ran for 137, and he's tough. He's tough to – he's impossible. He's so fast. He's so hard to bring down. And it was just evident in this game that he's still probably the most electric player in the NFL because he can do so much for your team. And really impressive. Ravens – get the win. They needed the win, obviously, and to win on the road against a rival. Impressive game for them. I thought their defense really showed up. The offense was there when it had to be. Lamar, I think he needs to throw for at least 200 yards, 200 plus, to win down the stretch here, because I don't think he's going to have the lanes that he did this week against Tennessee. He had a lot of 58-yard run, 30-yard, and he was chewing them. So I think he'll need to do more in the passing game, but solid effort from Baltimore. And I thought the better team won. So they move on. Second game yesterday was Chicago, the Bears at New Orleans. First half, this game really could have been way different than what the score said. At second New Orleans drive, after they drive to the Bears 40, about a 5-minute drive, they had a punt. Bears get the ball, gain 2 yards, obviously good field position. New Orleans turns that into a touchdown where Drew Brees finds Michael Thomas for a touchdown, first touchdown for him in 385 days, so it's been a while. But then the Bears get the ball back, and they're kind of moving the ball well. David Montgomery was getting the ball, Trubisky being creative. And they're on this beautiful trick play where they have Trubisky out wide right, Montgomery in the wildcat position. He throws the ball to Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson throws it to Trubisky as he gets back in the pocket. And he throws a picture-perfect ball, a deep ball, to Jalen Wims. And I've never seen Trubisky throw a better pass. It's right in the breadbasket, and Wims just whiffs on it. And I honestly think it changed the game. The New Orleans played terrible in the first half. Terrible. Oh, and Wims dropped. It was such an easy touchdown. And it was so heartbreaking because he had just caught a 28-yard pass, was kind of feeling it. And I think it changed the game. That drive, they didn't get any points. They got a field goal later on a Kerry Santos field goal, but they had chances in the first. Taysom Hill fumbled the ball. Trubisky wasn't finding receivers. The run game wasn't going well, but he didn't turn the ball over, so give him credit for that. But they had plays that were there that they just didn't capitalize on. When you're an underdog, when you're not as talented as the opposition, you need to capitalize on them, and they just didn't. So that was tough. But the second half was a different story. Drew Brees, I thought, looked pedestrian at best in the first half. He still seems tentative. But they played the Bears. Drew Brees had a great second half. He finished the game 28 for 39, 265, 2 touchdowns. But in the second half, he started to air it out a bit. He found Michael Thomas for 25 yards, found Jared Cook for over 20. But the Bears, again, shoot themselves in the foot. Start the second half, they go Bears go 3-0, of course. New Orleans goes on a long drive. They get down to the 15, 4th and 3. So they're going to kick a field goal, right? But the Bears jump offside. 5-yard penalty, 4th and 3, automatic first down. Well, that resulted in a Latavius Murray 5-yard touchdown reception, 14-3. I wrote this down because it's just so astonishing. They had 4 different plays on 3rd and short, so that's 3rd and 5 or less, where they gave the New Orleans a first down. So it's 3rd and 5. It's a 3rd, 5 or 4th and 5. Sorry, four different plays on 4th down that led to a first down. So 3rd and 5, you're 4th and 5. You're sitting there, and all you gotta do is not jump offside. New Orleans was just, Drew Brees was sitting there, giving out the snap count, and they'd have players jump over the line. Well, guess what? That's a 5-yard penalty, 5 yards a game, first down. They had 4 of those in the game. It was just infuriating. And the Bears punted 7 times in the game. They went 0 for 9 on 3rd down until the last possession. It was tough. Off another one of these stupid penalties that kept the drive going. New Orleans won a long run, a 9-minute drive, 15 plays. Alvin Kamara ran in a 3-yard score, 21-3. And, at the end of the game, New Orleans went on another long drive that was chewed up minutes. Drew Brees, it looked like he had scored a 1-yard quarterback sneak touchdown. He actually didn't cross the line, so they had to review that. The game ended with Jimmy Graham catching a touchdown. Literally the last play of the game, made a one-handed catch back at the end zone. Beautiful catch. The former New Orleans Saint. He made the catch, ran off the field, but New Orleans wins 21-9. I thought they look good in the second half. The Bears do have a good defense, but their first half worries me. With the win, they're going to be hosting Tampa Bay next weekend. That'll be Sunday at 7:40 start time. Tampa Bay's lost to New Orleans twice this year, on the opening week, and then in week 9 they played. That would have been Antonio Brown's first game. They lost big, 38-3. So Tampa's going to come into the Superdome obviously 0-2, but if I look at the teams over even the back half of the season, Tampa Bay's been way better than New Orleans, and it's not even that close. I'm not going to give my prediction for the game right now, but I think it's a tough matchup for the Saints. I think they'll be confident. They've beaten Tampa Bay twice, so they said, why not we do it a third time, send them home for good. But it's a different team than we saw early on. Drew Brees has gone through a lot. Latavius Murray got hurt in the games. Hopefully he can come back. Alvin Kamara had COVID. But a lot can happen this week. But I think Tampa is going to come into this game the most confident, even more than the first two. Obviously, week 1, Tampa was a new team. Basically, Tom Brady, new quarterback, not a lot of reps with his new receivers. And then New Orleans has been together as this unit of a team for a long period of time. So New Orleans, it's tough to win in New Orleans even with no crowd, but we'll see. I was said next Sunday 7:40, we're going to see Tampa Bay and Tom Brady visit Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. Final game of the day, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. It was the one that was toughest for me because I've been high in Cleveland all year. So I said, you know what? When I told Ben, I told my mother, she always texts me and asks me who's going to win. So I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'll take Cleveland just for fun. And I would, if Stefanski was there normally, I would have taken Cleveland without hesitation because I just think, but they had a lot of bad things. Stefanski's out, their head coach. He had COVID. They don't have Denzel Ward, their starting corner. He's out with COVID. Joel Bitonio, their all-pro left guard, and four-time Pro Bowler, out, COVID. They had a lot of problems, to say the least, coming into this game. They did have the receivers back. They do have the running backs, but, to lose the guy that calls your plays, that's invaluable. Listening to analysts this week, I was thinking, well, your quarterback's coach, they're like, no. Like this is super, super important, even more than, us average Joes really know. So I still pick Cleveland because I want to make it fun. I liked them all year. Pittsburgh was a clown show the last back half of the season. So I want to stay consistent on the podcast. I'll take Cleveland. So game starts. I'm like, well, I'll go 4-2. I'm going to be wrong. Whatever. Pittsburgh will win. First play of the game. This first 20 minutes of this football game may have been the craziest game I've ever seen. Just the first 20. I mean, the game was crazy too. The first 20 minutes was whack. I mean, that's the easiest way I can describe it. First play of the game. Former Pro Bowler, great center, Marquise Pouncey, snaps the ball and it airmails. I mean, Big Ben's 6'4", 6'. He's a big dude. It's over his head. It's over him. And they start the ball at their own 25. So this ball is carrying, going back. James Conner slides to jump on the ball at his own 2, misses it. Ball rolls into the end zone. Carl Joseph jumps on it. Touchdown, Cleveland. First play of the game. 7-0. Just a stunner. Defensive touchdown. First turnover for the Browns, which was a theme throughout the game. So 7-0. Next drive, Pittsburgh. Second play of the drive, Big Ben throws a ball, gets kind of tipped. He throws one trying to find James Conner running back, intercepted by MJ Stewart. So this is 2 turnovers in their first 3 plays. Mayfield turns that into a touchdown. 3 plays, 46 yards. He finds Jarvis Landry on a slant, who catches the ball, finds 34 yards after the catch. He's in the house. 14-0 Cleveland. Just like that. Next drive, Steelers have a good drive, but they're stuffed on 3rd and 1. They're forced to punt. 6 plays, 65 yards. Cleveland mowing through. Kareem Hunt has an impressive drive. He gets a 12-yard touchdown score. 21-0. This is still in the first quarter. I'll let you know when we get to the second. Still first quarter. 21-0 Cleveland on the road in Pittsburgh, where they've lost 17 in a row, including this year. So 21-0. Ben kind of overthrowing receivers. He overthrows one, picked off for the second time. Kareem Hunt, 28-0. And this is still first quarter. 28-0 the first quarter. Big Ben's intercepted again in the second quarter. So he has 3 picks in the first 20 minutes of this game, and it's 28-0 Browns. They're like the Browns and the Bills win on the same weekend is just crazy. In the playoffs, these teams aren't used to being in the playoffs. It was crazy. Big Ben, a future Hall of Famer. People can have their opinion about him. The guy's a rock star quarterback. He's Big Ben and Pittsburgh did try to rally. They went on a 13-play drive, 28-7. But to end the half, this was huge in the game as it went on. Baker found Austin Hooper, 35-7 at halftime, a 35-10 at halftime, sorry. Pittsburgh had 4 turnovers in the first half, none for Cleveland. It was just a nightmare start for Pittsburgh, but they did rally. They got 2 touchdowns, one to Eric Ebron, one to Juju Smith-Schuster in the third quarter. So they won the third quarter 14-0. So, that cut the game to 35-24. Biggest play for Cleveland was a Nick Chubb 40-yard touchdown reception to start the fourth quarter. So that gave them the 42-24 lead. Pittsburgh did add one more touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. But after 2 Cody Parkey field goals, Big Ben was intercepted late. He threw just some crazy statistics. He threw for 501 yards, but he threw 68 passes in the game. 68 for a guy his age. 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for Ben, but Cleveland ultimately wins 48-37. They won the game in the first half. They say in golf that you can't win the tournament on Thursday, but you can sure lose it. Well, Pittsburgh lost the game really in the first 5 or 6 minutes because bad snap, turnover, touchdown, turnover, that's it. I mean that kills you. So Cleveland wins their first playoff game in forever. They're moving on. And just to give you an update on where we stand here, Cleveland was the 6th seed. So they beat the 3-seeded Steelers. They're the lowest seed remaining. They are headed to Kansas City. They'll play at Kansas City next Sunday at 4:00. Heading on the road to Kansas City. Baltimore with the win. They're headed to Buffalo. They'll be playing in Buffalo next Saturday night. That's 9:15. And I mentioned the NFC games. 5:30 Saturday, we'll see Rams at Packers. And then Sunday night at 7:40, we'll see Tampa Bay at New Orleans. But, just a crazy weekend. The last game, of course, had to be the craziest because it's the Cleveland Browns. But, for fan bases like Cleveland and Buffalo, for their teams to win, I do feel good for them because they've been through hell. They haven't had any successful teams, and to see their teams have some success, obviously, is a good thing for the NFL. But I think Cleveland's in tough against Kansas City, of course, defending Super Bowl champions. But they'll have Stefanski back on the field. They'll likely have Batonio back at left guard, Denzel Ward back at corner. So you never know. Obviously, a lot of people didn't have them beating Pittsburgh, but good for them. To have his first year under a new head coach, to win, and he was FaceTimed after the game so he could celebrate with the guys. So that was a cool moment for him and for the team. But kudos to Cleveland for beating Pittsburgh. And this is a weird time for Pittsburgh. Big Ben has 1 year left on his contract, but he's always been a guy who said, he's always been mulling retirement for years now. I think he'll return because I don't think this will want to be the last image of Big Ben. Obviously throwing for 501, but 4 interceptions in a game is not the way you want to go out as a future Hall of Famer. I still think he has a desire to try to win another Super Bowl. But, if he was to leave, this leaves Pittsburgh in a tough spot. They got Mason Rudolph, who's not a starting quarterback in this league. I mean, he's been there for a couple of years, and he's not the answer. If the Jets were to move on from Sam Darnold, I think it would be really smart for them, even if Big Ben returns, to sign Sam Darnold. Could be a smaller deal, could be a bridge deal. He could sit behind Ben for a year, learn, kind of like the Jameis Winston project in New Orleans this year. Kind of take in information, learn some things. Patrick Mahomes sat for a year behind Alex Smith. But Pittsburgh's, it'll be interesting to see what they do here. Another guy, Alex Smith, obviously he couldn't play for Washington, which I feel bad. I wish he could have gotten out there and gotten to take some snaps. But he said he's going to mull over his future, doesn't know if this is it yet. I think that would have been his last game against Philadelphia. I mean, he's had so many injuries. His legs, you don't want to compromise those anymore. He's battled so hard just to get back here. My advice to him is just hang them up and enjoy, the life that you got. You got money. You've had a good career. You got a Washington team to the playoffs, which nobody saw coming. So, So good for Alex Smith. If he does come back, I'll root for him as I'm a fan now for life. But, you know, a good effort by him and by everybody this weekend. You know, but some great product all in all. And before I wrap up, I thought I'd talk about Deshaun Watson in Houston. Houston, if you don't watch Houston Texans a lot, I'll just say this. Deshaun Watson is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He might be number 2 behind Mahomes. When it comes to value, because I think Aaron Rodgers is better than him, but Deshaun's younger. He's 26. He's going to be there longer. Rodgers is 37, so he's only got so many years left. Deshaun just signed contract extension in Houston, but Houston's been a mess for a while. What Houston does is they hire everybody from New England. They hired Bill O'Brien, Romeo Crennel. Their last GM was a New England hire, and it's just this pattern of Belichick disciples that haven't panned out. And of course, they fire Bill O'Brien, who was their head coach GM, and they say, well, what are we going to do? So they hired, they asked Tony Dungy and asked all these black executives or former executives of the NFL to come and help them in their GM search. And this is just fraudulent, if you ask me, because the group gave them the 2 people that they're 2 finalists. One was Louis Riddick. I've talked about on the podcast before. He does the Monday Night Football. I think he's great at that, but I think he'd make a great GM because I've never seen somebody know more about football. And he was the guy that they recommended. And they hired Nick Caserio from New England. Go figure. A white guy who's worked for Bill, and I don't have a problem with Caserio getting the job, but why is it always from New England when it hasn't worked? They're trying to rebuild something where New England worked because they had it. It's not carrying over. Matt Patricia didn't carry over anything to Detroit. Romeo Crennel hasn't carried over anything. Charlie Weiss didn't carry over anything in the NFL. And Deshaun Watson didn't like it because they asked him his recommendation, and I think Louis Riddick was top of the list for him. And they asked him who they thought they should interview for head coach. And, he understood that. He said, you don't got to take my advice, but maybe if you have your star quarterback, maybe at least the person that he tells you to interview, maybe interview him, right? That makes some sense. He said Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, who's the right hire. I think he'd make a great hire in Houston. They interview a ton of people, but they didn't interview Eric Bieniemy. They didn't even interview him. It doesn't make every other team that has a vacancy interviewed Eric Bieniemy. And maybe it'll be smoke and he doesn't get hired. But at least give him the interview and say, well, Deshaun, he was pretty good, but we like this guy better. Okay. You can at least stomach that. But Deshaun's frustrated because these guys have just lied to him. And I understand that they're a mess down there. They have no draft picks. And Deshaun threw for the most yards in the NFL this year. He had a great year, but they went 4-12. And apparently he's unhappy and he wants out. And a big rumor over the weekend was that Miami is a destination he'd like to go to. Miami has, Tua Tagovailoa. They got the Houston pick at number 3. So they could get that pick back in a sense. If I'm Miami, I don't know how much it would cost you, but it really wouldn't matter how much it costs. I would make that deal. Deshaun Watson is a proven commodity in the NFL. Tua could be, but he's still a work in progress, hasn't shown enough yet. Deshaun Watson changes your franchise. He's that. Watch him at Clemson. He was phenomenal. He's been great in the NFL. The Dolphins haven't had an elite quarterback since Dan Marino. That would change the instant you get Deshaun Watson. Now, whether Nick Caserio wants to make that move, that's a whole other story. But certainly something to follow during the offseason and just see where that all ends up. But that was Super Wildcard Weekend. 6 games in the books. We got 4 next weekend. I'll be talking about them later in the week with a guest before the divisional games. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed the football this weekend. Coverage coming all week. Got NHL starting Wednesday. I'm going to be doing some shows. Got a special show coming up Friday, which I'm going to tease for a little bit. But special show dropping Friday night. Enjoy your day. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be talking real soon.